It started with a photo, just one of those blurry, candid shots people snap when they're walking through a park with a sandwich in one hand and their phone in the other. A coworker had been in Portland for a conference. Nothing fancy, just one of those regional leadership things with tote bags and water bottles with logos. And she texted me, kind of laughing, saying, "Is this your guy?" I didn't know what she meant at first. I clicked on the image and had to zoom in. There he was, Mark, wearing that same fleece zip-up he'd packed 3 weeks ago when he left for his rotation. But he wasn't on a job site. He wasn't wearing a hard hat. He was holding a little girl on his shoulders, laughing like nothing else in the world mattered. Next to him was a woman with a dark green coat, her hand wrapped around his elbow like it had always belonged there. I remember I stared at it for a long time. At first I thought it couldn't be him. Maybe someone who looked like him from a certain angle, maybe a coincidence. But the longer I looked, the more obvious it became that this wasn't a man caught in the wrong moment. This was a man who belonged in the frame. He always told me he worked 2-week rotations on a site near Seattle, said it was a concrete and framing subcontract, big developer, tight schedules. He said there wasn't always good service up there and joked that cell towers hadn't made it past 2010 in some of those areas. And I believed him. I mean, why wouldn't I? But then I checked the date the photo was taken. It was the same day he'd sent me a voice message. I remember it now, clear as anything. There was construction noise in the background, and his voice was tired. "Still 1 more week to go," he said. "Weather's been awful. I can't wait to see you." I started scrolling back through all the photos he'd sent me from his rotations. All those steel beams and dusty boots and half-eaten sandwiches. On dashboards. Never any faces, no coworkers, no landmarks, just fragments. Like someone trying really hard to prove they were somewhere, but not too specifically. At lunch, I called him. Not because I wanted answers, I just needed to hear how he'd sound. He picked up right away. His voice was warm, familiar. He joked about how Boise's snow forecast was total crap again, and asked if I'd remembered to take my vitamins. He always did that, mixed concern with teasing. I asked about the job, and he went on about the new guy on site who couldn't pour a slab straight to save his life. It all sounded normal, and I didn't say a thing about the photo. I played my part. I asked about lunch and said I was thinking of baking banana bread this weekend, and he told me not to burn it like last time. I didn't, by the way. He just likes to exaggerate. When we hung up, I stared at my phone for a while. Then I deleted the photo my coworker had sent. Just like that. Gone. I told myself it might have been nothing. Maybe he ran into someone he used to know. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe the little girl was a niece, or the woman was someone he was helping with directions, or, God, I don't know. Maybe he was doing one of those father-daughter volunteer events you hear about in parks sometimes. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, going over that image in my mind. How naturally his hand rested on her back, how the girl clung to him like he was hers, how his smile didn't look like the one he gave me. It looked deeper, like muscle, memory. It wasn't just the picture, it was the way he fit into it. You ever see something that doesn't just break your heart, it rearranges it? Like you realize you've been building your life around a shape that was never really there. I kept replaying his voice in my head, that message with the fake background noise, the casual way he'd said he missed me. And the worst part? It still made me feel warm, even when I knew it was probably all scripted. I think that was the moment I realized something had shifted, not just in how I saw him, but in how I saw myself with him. For 3 years, I thought we were building something steady, even if it was slow. But now I wasn't sure I'd ever even seen the real blueprint. And once that thought was there, it didn't leave. It didn't happen all at once. I didn't wake up and turn into some master investigator. It was slower, more like walking into a cold pool inch by inch, knowing it'll sting but going in anyway. I started small, just looked through his social media, which I honestly hadn't done in ages. Mark was never the posting type. Mostly old photos of job sites, sunsets from motel windows, a A few beers with coworkers whose names I barely knew. But I started searching the cities he'd mentioned. Not obsessively, at first. Just curiosity, really. Hashtags like Watch Lake Oswego Festival or our Portland Family Day, things like that. I told myself I was just checking. Like somehow if I could find nothing, it would be a kind of proof. Except I did find something. A photo from 2 years ago, taken at one of those local summer street fairs. In the background, partially out of focus but unmistakably there, was Mark. He was wearing the same jacket he used to keep in my closet, and standing just behind him, holding a snow cone and talking to a woman with a wide straw hat, was the same woman from the park photo. Same posture, same soft hand on his arm. I didn't need a clearer shot to know. That's when it stopped being maybe. I made a fake account, just a regular profile with a stock photo and a generic name, Megan, I think, and joined a parent group. Based in Lake Oswego. Said I was new in town, looking for recommendations on a contractor. Described Mark almost exactly. Tall, dark blonde, works rotating shifts, maybe in concrete or drywall. I got 3 replies. One of them said, "Sounds like Jeff P. He did our porch last year. Really great with the kids around." Jeff P., not Mark, but the photo on his company's site? It was him. I stared at it for 10 minutes. The name threw me off, but the smile didn't. Later that day, he called. Just to check in. Said the crew was behind schedule again, claimed the site had no cell service except for that one hill by the porta potties. His words, not mine. Told me the foreman hadn't paid anyone in a week and laughed like it was just another typical day. "Keep me in your prayers," he said at the end, "if you're the type to do that." I didn't answer. I just let him talk and nodded even, though he couldn't see me. Sometimes I wonder if he knew. If he could feel it through the phone, that quiet that says I'm still here, but something isn't. That weekend, I went to the Boise Farmers Market like I always do. It's one of the few routines I kept after everything. The same parking spot behind the old bookstore, same line at the espresso stand near the honey cart. It's silly, but I like seeing familiar faces, hearing the same couple argue about sourdough, every Saturday like clockwork. And that's where I saw Jerry. He's one of those people you don't really know, but you remember. He gave Mark a ride once when his truck broke down after some party a couple years back. Tall guy, wore those wraparound sunglasses even when it's overcast. He spotted me in line and came over, all smiles. "Hey, didn't expect to see you. How was Portland? Saw the pic of you and Mark with the little one? You've got such a cute family." And for a second, I froze, just for a beat. My brain kind of blinked, like it couldn't keep up with the real time of the conversation. Then I smiled. I smiled like I meant it and said, "Oh yeah, it was nice to get away for a couple days." Which is ridiculous, right? But what else do you say? Actually, that wasn't me. He's living 2 lives and I'm just the B-side. After he left, I bought my coffee and walked the long way back to my car. I sat with the door open, coffee between my knees, and stared at the steering wheel like it might have answers. Later that night, I deleted his last 2 voice messages. The ones where he asked about my week and joked that he missed my banana bread, again with the bread. It wasn't anger. It was more like clearing a shelf that's been gathering dust, and somewhere in all that silence, between the fake profile and the farmer's market and the fake smile to Jerry, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. Everything we'd built over the last 3 years. Maybe it had never really been the house. Maybe I was just the guest room. I didn't cut things off, not directly. I just stopped initiating. No texts in the morning, no memes I thought he'd laugh at, no random updates about my neighbor's cat who insists on sitting on my car like it belongs to him. I only replied when he reached out, and even then, just enough to sound normal. Polite, warmish, not angry, not anything really. A few days later, he said he'd be back in town and asked if he could swing by. Said he missed me, said he had something for me. I said sure, even though my chest tightened just reading it. He showed up around 7, looking tired in that curated way he always did. Sun-touched face, a little scruff, flowers in one hand, wine in the other. He kissed me like he always had. Familiar, uncomplicated. Like no one's hands had changed shape. He cooked. Well, warmed up takeout and added basil from my windowsill so it looked like he had. He told me about the site, a new guy who almost backed a forklift into a generator. I laughed because that's what I used to do. Somewhere between the salad and the second glass of wine, he mentioned someone named Laura. He said it like it was obvious, like I should know who she was. Laura's kids have been sick all week, he said, rolling his eyes. So she's been out and we're short-staffed again. I asked, very casually, or at least I think I did, do you have someone on your team with kids? He didn't blink. Yeah, Laura's got 2 daughters. Cute kids. Total chaos when they FaceTime her at lunch. That sentence landed in my ribs like it had weight. The way he said it, so light, so normal. No filters, no cover-up. Later, he took a shower. I sat on the couch pretending to scroll, the TV playing a crime show neither of us were really watching. I heard his voice through the bathroom door. Quiet at first, then clearer. He was talking to someone, not just talking, soft, hushed, warm. He said, "Sweetheart," and something like, "I'll tuck you in tomorrow night." My chest burned. There's this thing that happens when you hear something you're not supposed to. Your body freezes, but your mind rushes ahead like it's already trying to explain it away. When he came out, he smiled like nothing happened, dropped a towel on the floor, kissed my forehead, and said he was going to crash. I nodded, already, knowing I wouldn't sleep. In the morning, I sat at the kitchen table while he made toast and hummed some dumb song he always did when he thought he was being charming. He looked the same, but somehow didn't. Like his face was a version I'd seen in pictures, not in person. Like someone else's memory of him had shown up instead of him. He didn't wait for coffee, just grabbed his keys and said he had to get on the road before traffic. I watched the door close behind him and realized the kitchen had never sounded so big. Every chair scraped louder. The clock ticked like it was counting down to something. I cleaned up slowly. No rush. Wasn't much to put away, really. His plate, my glass, the wine cork he left sitting next to the sink. Then I found it. A business card. Crumpled a bit, like it had been in his wallet forever. Hazelwood Community School. A phone number. The edges were soft, like fingers had worn it down over time. I took a photo of it, then slid it back where I found it. That afternoon, I looked it up, found their website. Cheerful, bright, primary colors and stock photos of giggling kids. I clicked around until I found the Parent Volunteers page. There was Laura, holding a mic on a makeshift stage. Her smile was real. Her hair up in that same twist she'd worn in the park. And right beside her, arms crossed, standing just close enough, was Mark, or Jeff, whatever. He wasn't distracted in the photo. He wasn't out of place. He belonged there. And that's when it really hit me. This wasn't some affair, not some temporary lie wrapped in excuses. This was a full life built parallel to mine, with its own structure, its own rhythm, a whole rhythm section, honestly. PTA meetings, packed lunches, maybe dance recitals. There wasn't room for me in it, not even as a side note. It had been more than a month. No messages, no calls, no accidental thinking of you photos. December moved in quietly, the kind of winter that doesn't announce itself with snow but just makes the wind feel meaner. Christmas came and went. I didn't decorate, didn't bake. Just bought a cinnamon candle from Albertsons and let it burn too long. The house smelled like spice and something unfinished. He didn't reach out, and I didn't either. Sometimes, after work, I'd drive past my street without thinking. Just keep going. It became a pattern. I'd take the long way along the Boise River greenbelt, windows half down even if it was cold. The trees were bare, the air sharp, and the path always nearly empty this time of year. It felt like a kind of silence I could stand in without having to explain myself. Spring came early that year. By March, the snow had melted into muddy sidewalks and the sidewalks turned into grass, and I realized I couldn't keep orbiting my own front porch forever. I needed to be around people, not friends, just strangers doing things that mattered, something with shelves, with a schedule. So I signed up to volunteer at the local library. It was quiet, which suited me. Mostly shelving books, helping kids find their dinosaurs that are real section, and occasionally smiling at parents who looked like they hadn't slept in a week. No one knew anything about me, and I didn't know anything about them. That felt fair. One Wednesday, I was straightening a shelf in the children's section, just picking up scattered board books and fixing the ones kids had crammed in backward, and I noticed a small white sticker on the inside flap of a hardback. It read, "Gift from the Fisher family, in honor of Maya and Ellie." That name. Ellie. It landed right behind my ribs. I don't know why it hit me like that. Maybe because I hadn't thought about her. Not directly, anyway. But as soon as I read it, it felt like someone had whispered it in my ear. I closed the book gently and put it back where it belonged. Didn't touch it again. That night, I stopped by the grocery store on my way home. Just needed bananas and almond milk, maybe something frozen I wouldn't have to think about. The fluorescent lights felt too bright after the soft lighting of the library. I was halfway down the produce aisle when I heard a voice behind me. Didn't expect to run into you here. It was Mark. He was holding a basket, 2 bell peppers on top, a loaf of bread underneath, wearing that same jacket he always said was just for job sites. He smiled like it was the most natural thing in the world, said he'd been in Portland. Business trip, quick stop, nothing exciting. Asked how I was, if I was still working too hard, joked about the bananas in my cart. Then he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee, and my brain did this weird thing. Half freeze, half flicker. Why now? Why here? What exactly was he hoping this would be? I told him I didn't have much time, which wasn't entirely true, but also wasn't a lie. He nodded. Didn't push. Just kept looking at me, a little too long, like he was waiting for something I didn't owe him anymore. "You haven't called," he said. His voice wasn't accusing, just aware. "I've missed you." I don't even know what expression I gave him, but the words came out before I could shape them. "I stopped waiting for your rotations. That kind of changes everything." And it did. Because there's a difference between distance and absence. One you can prepare for. The other just rearranges the furniture of your life when you're not looking. Spring faded into early summer, and Boise warmed into that dry, grassy heat that clings to the sidewalk and makes your clothes feel heavier than they are. The kind of weather that smells like sprinklers and dust, like open windows and neighbors grilling 3 houses down. I found myself settling into something that looked like calm, or at least something that mimicked it well enough. I still kept to myself, still took the long way home some evenings, but my breath had a rhythm again. I didn't feel steady exactly. More like balanced. Like someone walking across a sheet of glass, hoping it holds. One afternoon, I was leaving the library after sorting through a batch of returns. Lots of dinosaur books again, plus a surprising number of gardening guides. And I heard a small voice behind me say, "Ma'am, you dropped this." I turned and saw a little girl, maybe 6, holding out a library card I must have fumbled when I put my phone away. She had light brown curls, loose sneakers, and a grin that didn't quite match the weight in my chest, because it was her. The same girl from that photo in the park. Not obviously, not instantly, but once you've stared at something long enough to memorize it, your brain doesn't let go. She handed me the card like it was no big deal. Then a woman stepped up behind her. Slightly flushed, casual in a sleeveless blouse and sandals. "Ellie," she said gently, "you've got to hold on to my hand when we're crossing the lot, remember?" Ellie. That name again. The woman turned to me and smiled. Polite, but not forced. "Sorry about that. I'm Laura. Our daughter's at Hazelwood across the street. I think you might know Mark?" She said it like it was a weather observation. Not accusatory, not unsure, just fact. And I knew in that second that she knew. Not in fragments. Not through whispers or hunches. She knew. She wasn't in the dark. She wasn't behind in the story. She was the one holding the page. There was no awkward pause, no slow realization. She already had the whole script. She tilted her head slightly and added, "You're not the first, but you might be the last." What do you even do with that? What do you say to a woman who hands you that kind of truth like it's a coffee order? Nodded, maybe. I honestly don't remember. She didn't wait for a reply. She just gave Ellie's hand a squeeze and turned toward the sidewalk like it was any other day. I stood there for another minute. The library card still in my hand. My fingers felt cold even though it was 82 degrees out. That night, just after 9, someone knocked on my door. Not loud, not urgent. Just a quiet, even rhythm. I knew who it was before I looked. Mark was standing there, framed by the porch light. Same jacket, same face. He looked tired, but not like someone coming from work. More like someone who finally realized the lock had changed. He said, "I can explain." I didn't open the door. I sat down on the other side, knees to my chest, back against the wood, and listened to him say my name. Once, twice. And then again, softer. I didn't speak. Because something had clicked earlier that day in the parking lot. Not like a snap, more like a quiet realignment. This whole thing, this story I thought I'd been living in. It wasn't just built on lies. It was built on decisions. Choices that were made deliberately. Paths that were drawn without asking if I even wanted to walk them. And none of those choices had been mine. Mark didn't come back. No more calls, no texts. Nothing except a voicemail that popped up one day while I was folding laundry. His voice low, like he was speaking into a pillow. Just 6 words. "I'm sorry, I wanted it different." That was it. No name, no closing line. Just a message that felt like someone putting a book back on the wrong shelf and walking away. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stood there holding a warm towel and let the silence fill the room until the dryer beeped again. After that, things didn't change all at once. They never do, right? There wasn't some grand transformation, just small shifts. I stopped, looking for signs, stopped checking who viewed my stories, stopped searching Hazelwood's site for updates. I started painting the hallway a new color, went for jogs before work, sat on the swings with the neighborhood kids and read them books about spiders and silly monsters. One day, I got a postcard from the library, just a generic "thank you for volunteering" card with a little scribbled line at the bottom. "Ellie reads Charlotte every night now." No return address, no signature. I didn't know if it was from Laura, or a librarian, or no one. I didn't try to find out. In May, there was a charity dinner. My boss made me go. You know the kind, paper name tags and overcooked chicken, silent. Auction baskets wrapped in crinkled plastic. I wore a dress I hadn't touched in over a year. They sat me next to a man from a construction firm, gray suit, warm hands, easy laugh. Halfway through the salad course, he asked if I knew a guy named Mark. "I think we had him on site once," he said, smiling like it was nothing. We get a lot of those types. Romantics with messes behind them. I didn't answer. Just looked out the window at the parking lot, counting the streetlights flickering on one by one. Almost a year passed. Then a letter came. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a single page. No apology, no excuses. Just a list of books. He said he'd finally gotten around to reading. A few I'd recommended years ago. A few we'd only talked about. At the bottom, in that rushed handwriting I'd memorized without meaning to, he wrote, "I remember you once said, sometimes it's better to leave behind an empty room than a ruined house." That was all. I didn't reply. I didn't tell anyone about the letter. I slid it into the drawer with the utility bills and old receipts. Not hidden, just filed. And sometimes when it rains in town, the kind of long, low rain that soaks the curb and hums against the windows, I still catch myself waiting for a call. Not because I want it, just because for 3 years, even in the lies, no one ever spoke to me the way he did.